and how we can counter global warming. What are the limits of every human task? We must achieve a broad planetary consensus to unleash solidarity among the most oppressed, and to punish and tax waste and speculation, mobilizing the large economies not to create disposable goods, but rather useful goods without built-in obsolescence in order to help the poorest in the world. Useful goods against global poverty. It's 1,000 times more profitable to turn towards a useful neo-Keynesianism on a global scale in order to abolish the most flagrant scandals of this world. Perhaps our world requires fewer global bodies, fewer people who organize fora and conferences, which only help hotel chains and airlines, and perhaps no one really benefits from their decisions. We have to go back to what is old and eternal in human life, along with science. This science which must work for humankind and not to become rich. With this, with men of science, the counselors of humankind, we have to build agreements for the entire world. Neither the large nation states nor transnational companies, and not to mention the financial system, none of them should govern the human world. Yes, lofty politics combined with scientific wisdom. That is the source. The science that is not attracted by gain, but which is looking towards the future and which tells us what we don't expect. How many years ago did they tell us in Kyoto certain things which we finally learned? We have to convene intelligence at the helm. Actions of this nature and others which we think are crucial, but which require life and not accumulation. Obviously, we will not fool ourselves. These things will not happen. Things like this will not happen. There is still much pointless sacrifice ahead of us. We still have to deal with consequences and not tackle the causes. Today, the world is incapable of establishing planetary regulations, globalized regulations. And this is due to the failure of global politics, the politics that deals with everything. For a time, we will be protected by more or less regional agreements, which are going to establish a deceitful free trade, which in the end will build protectionist barriers, supranational barriers in some regions of our planet. Certain branches of industry will grow, and there will be services devoted to saving the environment. And hence, we will be reassured for some time. Of course, accumulation will continue undeterred for the pleasure of the financial system. There will still be wars and fanaticism until nature makes this civilization, makes this order unviable. Perhaps, ladies and gentlemen, perhaps our vision is a bit too crude, ruthless, and we see man as a unique creature, the only creature on Earth capable of going against his own species. I repeat, what some call the ecological crisis of the planet is the result of the overwhelming triumph of human ambition. That's our triumph, but also our defeat, because we are helpless at the political level to tackle a new era that we have helped to build, and we don't realize it. Why do I say this? Just look at the data. It's true that the population has quadrupled, and GDP has grown 20-fold in the last century. Since 1990, global trade grew by about 12% every year for a period of 6 years. We can continue to provide further data on this globalization that will see and will show clearly how globalization is marching forward. What's happening? We are entering another period at great speed, but with politicians, parties, young people and old people faced with the accumulation of change, which we cannot even realize. We can't handle globalization because we don't have a global thought process. We don't know if it's a cultural barrier or if it's a biological limit. Our time is a revolutionary one, like humankind has never seen before. But it doesn't have a conscious or simply instinctive inclination. Nor is there an organized political inclination, because we haven't even had a philosophy for what we are doing now, given the speed of change. Greed, this devastating greed that has pushed us towards material, technical, and scientific progress, which has made our time, which has made this a phenomenal period, moving forward on so many fronts. Paradoxically, the same greed has pushed us to an abyss. A history that we don't know, a time without history, and we no longer have the eyes nor the collective intelligence to continue colonizing our planet and changing ourselves. Because if there's one characteristic that humans have, it's that we are conquerors. We are anthropological conquerors. It seems that things are taking a life of their own and subjecting humankind. On the one hand, we see glimpses of a possible direction, but it's impossible for us to make collective decisions for this everything. Individual greed has triumphed over the superior greed of the species. Let's clarify this. What is this everything that we are talking about? What is this everything for us? It's the global life of the Earth, including human life, with all of the fragile balances that make it possible for our species to perpetuate itself. On the other hand, more simply and more clearly, in the West, because that's where we come from, even though we come from the South, republics that were created to affirm that men and women are equal, that no one is more than anyone else, that their governments should represent the common good, justice, and equity. Very often, the republics are distorted and fall into oblivion, forgotten by people, common people who walk the streets. They weren't the republics that were created in order to of the life of peoples, and hence republics belong to the majorities, and they must fight to promote the interests of the majority. Due to these feudal memories, or this overwhelming classism, or perhaps due to the consumeristic culture that surrounds us all, republics very frequently in their directions have adopted a daily life which excludes the common man. And this common man should be the main cause of the political struggle in the life of the republic. Governments, republican governments, should look more and more like their respective peoples in the way they govern and in their commitment to life. The fact is that we still cultivate these feudal archaisms. We make hierarchical differences which, in the long run, undermine the best of our republics. The interplay of these and other factors take us back to our prehistory, and today it's impossible to give up war when politics fails. Hence, economies are strangled and we waste resources